we have to be honest that it's not like things are okay these days. That's not the end of the story, of course, and as people of faith, we have hope that in God's hand, good is coming of this and will continue to come of this. But we're sure in the middle of it right now, and there is real struggle and real pain for many. And a few weeks ago, I'll be honest, I was despairing. The count of people we've lost in this country and in the world was really mounting, as predicted and as feared, and is far worse now, of course. So I was feeling the grief of that as I feel it now, and feeling the pain of knowing that people can't come together to grieve their dearly departed. Also, as predicted and feared, it became clear at that point a few weeks ago that the people hit hardest by this pandemic are and will continue to be the people who are hardest hit in our society when there isn't a pandemic. Our local example here in Walla of this national trend is the folks working at the Tyson plant in the county, who are mostly immigrants, and infection is high there, and the protections are low. And on top of all of that, key leaders with massive amounts of power are predictably, I'm sorry to say, are not stepping up and demonstrating the virtues of good leadership in this time of crisis, but rather have continued to lie and blame and dismiss and threaten and throw people under the bus at a time when there is way too much at stake for persistent duplicity and pettiness. And as much as I've really relished the sense that we're all in this together, it was a couple of weeks ago that I really let myself feel my disappointment and anger that apparently a lot of our fellow citizens, and indeed pastors and leaders of some other churches around our country, refuse to even be inconvenienced for the public good. And all of that grief and outrage and helplessness was just welling up inside me. And you know what I'm talking about. I wouldn't be bothering to talk about myself if I didn't know that you know what I'm talking about. We're all feeling this if we care. And I know God joins us in this. Jesus wept when Lazarus died. Jesus cried over Jerusalem because it did not know the way of peace. And so I was in our backyard, really feeling all of this. It was a beautiful day, but here I was brooding and moody when suddenly a sound caught my attention. And at first I couldn't place it. It was like something half remembered in a dream. The sound was like a primitive, reedy baritone woodwind belting out these graveling purrs. And it made me think of smooth river stones and reeds along the marshes. Cranes, Sandhill cranes. These were the calls of cranes raining down from the sky. And I looked up, and at first I couldn't see them. But when I did spot the dozen or so cranes flying in a V, I was surprised by how high they were flying because of how near their calls sounded. And they were flying north, likely to settle for the springtime in the wetlands north of the bend in the Columbia River. And I remembered that these are likely the same cranes, the same families of cranes that I would see when I lived in New Mexico years ago. They winter along the Rio Grande near Socorro, New Mexico. And eastern Washington is on the migratory route for that population of cranes. Cranes are ancient birds. They've been adapting their cycles of migration and life through millions of years of changes. Over mountains as high as the Himalayas, through ice ages and tectonic shifts. And among many cultures in the world, cranes have been seen to be messengers between heaven and earth. And in the midst of my feelings of despair, this is how they felt to me that day. Cranes have also been seen to be symbols of faithfulness. They mate for life, and they take care of their flock. Individual cranes take turns keeping watch over their flocks when they graze. They are faithful to their entire community. And so as I stood there and watched and listened as they flew on, I awoke to the truth that's expressed in a saying among the Dene or Navajo people. Sometimes I go about feeling pitiful, And all the while I'm being carried on great winds across the sky. Sometimes I go about feeling pitiful, and all the while I'm being carried on great winds across the sky. When I have the honor of presiding at the graveside when some dear person in our community has reached the end of their earthly days, I always like to include in the liturgy of that committal service part of Psalm 90. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations, before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you formed the earth and the world. From everlasting to everlasting you are God. You turn us back to dust, and say, turn back, you mortals. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, or like a watch in the night. You sweep them away. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed, and in the evening it fades and withers. So teach us to count our days, that we may gain a wise heart. So my friends, we are in times of great upheaval, of tremendous loss, of tremendous uncertainty, and this is nothing new. We can be honest about it. Humanity has passed through many periods like this. And so we don't need to deny or dismiss or succumb to delusion. We can keep our hearts open to the struggles of our present reality. And if we lift our gaze just a little, we can maybe glimpse a bit of that view of eternity that we hear in Psalm 90, a glimmer of God's eye view of things. There are ancient cycles turning today as they've turned in the past, cycles of death and rebirth, of loss and renewal. Civilizations, entire species have come and gone as the earth has wheeled around the sun. And through the changes, our ancient faith sings of the faithfulness of our Creator. God's covenant has held through war and famine and exile, the covenant that God will provide new life and new horizons of possibility for those who commit to the laws of life and faith and justice. And so we hear from Robert Lax, the poet, in the beginning and end were in one, and in the beginning was love. Love made a sphere, and all things grew within it. The sphere then encompassed beginnings and endings, beginning and end. Love had a compass, whose whirling dance traced out a sphere of love in the void, and in the center thereof rose a fountain. And here also from Psalm 65, you spread your justice, God our Savior, across the world to the farthest oceans. You have laid down the mountain ranges and set them fast. You make the seas calm and the sounds peaceful. You reconcile the peoples who dwell here. So in this corner of the earth, we wonder at your deeds. At the meeting of east and west, we sing your praise. You water the land and make it flourish from your own bursting river. To provide for our crops, you plow and irrigate the land, softening it with rain to make it fruitful. And so, my friends, let's be real about the grief and the struggles and the injustices of our time, while keeping our gaze lifted, so we may keep the faith, keep the old covenant with our God and with each other, to be caring for the most vulnerable, to be living with courage and mercy and integrity and prudence and wisdom. And this Sunday, to help us lift our gaze to the wider cycles of life lived in covenant with our Creator, we are especially blessed to have in our worship service a visual tone poem, which is a work of art by Melissa Webster, a dear member of our community of faith here at First Congregational Church in Walla, and she's curated this cycle of images from her woodcut prints and photography. And Jackie Wood has provided a meditative musical accompaniment to that. And so we offer that to you now. And for all of this, and for our glimpse into the view of eternity, for knowing that whatever we are going through, we are being carried on great winds across the sky, I give thanks to God, our Creator, our Sustainer, and our Redeemer. Thanks be to God.